So we're at the Sentosa Golf Club in Singapore at the Titleist National Fitting Center. Once again joined by Andrew Rogers. Andrew, good to have you with us once again. Let's talk about iron fitting now. And what are some of the common mistakes and misconceptions you see when typical amateurs come in for an iron fitting session with you?
Yeah, the big issue we see with a lot of amateurs coming in is they're trying to hit it as far as possible. Their irons are purely focused on total distance, where irons are your scoring clubs. And the key with your irons is not how far they go, it's knowing how far it goes. It's having it consistent, knowing how it's going to fly, getting the sufficient landing angle and descent into the green that'll actually hold a green. A lot of people are going very strong lofted irons, which is fine. But then what does that mean for their set composition? Their long irons, 5 and 6 iron these days can get so strong in loft that you can't hold a green with them. So it's just understanding the broader context of irons, what they're going to do for you, what does your set need to look like, and focusing more on what's going to help you score better as opposed to what's going to help you hit it further.
So if you had to rate it in terms of driver fitting, putter fitting, wedge fitting, iron fitting, where does iron fitting sit? How important is it?
Iron fitting takes on a slightly different direction in the sense it's more about feel and ball flight and how can we help that player execute those shots effectively. So it's still very important. It's probably sits slightly under sort of wedge and putter fitting in my opinion, but it's still really critical to anyone's game.
All right, so that all sounds really interesting. I can't wait to get started. What's the process for getting fitted for irons here at the Titleist National Fitting Center?
Yep, so our first step, as it is with all our fittings, is a conversation. We interview you. We find out where are your strengths and weaknesses. What do you see on course?
That's about as much as I can turn it over.
Yeah, but that is the bad one, isn't it?
That's the bad one.
What are the tendencies that you like and don't like with your irons and your ball flight? Yep. So that's about how you like to see it fly.
About there.
And then we understand that becomes our framework to fit for you. What's the context? Why are you here? How am I going to help you play better golf? You know, the variance in your ball speed at 2.8, now they're relatively good strikes, but the control of your ball speed there is a bit of an issue in the sense that your dispersion up and down the green is going to be bigger than we want. Then we look at your current clubs. Are your clubs influencing your ball flight at all? Say they're maybe promoting a more right to left than you want. Okay, what are the factors that are influencing that? It's a pretty good swing. Okay. Your geometry is very good. It's just that you've had a disproportionate amount of draw there. You can tell you're always fighting that right to left. And we'll look at the head type then. So what's your strike locations like? You know, what kind of ball flights do you need? And again, do we need to bring the flight down or up? What kind of window do you want to see? And depends on the player, but also what does the player want? So the things I look at here as I go, I want to get your spin down on average. That's a little bit high. I want to get your face control a bit more predictable. And I want to try and get your ball speed pretty even. So they're all pretty good strikes.
Okay.
But your ball speed's going to be costing you a little bit of control there.
Right.
But the most important thing is always trying to help that person score better. So the things that are going to help a person score better is going to be, let's try and get the strike as consistent as possible. Let's try and get the launch and spin in a consistent window. It's all about consistency. So you know what it's going to do when you get on course. That's going to help breed confidence. Your strike's pretty consistent. So we're not too concerned about your shaft length and lie angle. At this point looks okay. We're going to try a different head and just see what we can do with this one, straight off the bat.
Okie dokie. So I see you've got some heads out here. Let's talk about different head types and the technology that's gone into each one of them.
Yeah, so obviously we have a variety of different heads and they all do different jobs. We start up here with our T300s. That's the longest, most forgiving iron we have. This is really for the kind of person, well, these kind of clubs are for the kind of person who just wants to get it on the green. I maybe don't hit the center of the face too often. I just want to get on the green, have a putt, keep it simple. And as you transition down the heads, you get down to what, you know, the more player style heads, which is more for the person who likes to work a lot of different shots, doesn't miss the middle that often. I like to see the ball flight in different ways. Well, this is a T100 head, so this is a really nice, this is, you know, evolved from what the AP2s were. Okay. This is our gold standard iron. It's a great head. We were talking about the forgiveness before. This gives you really good ball speed control, but it still gives you the ability to control the flight and hit a few different shots around it. Yep. This is all about ball speed control. It's not so much about what's my handicap. It's more about what's that person's strike dynamic like. Are we trying to help them draw it more or fade less or vice versa? And what's going to help that person play best?
That's okay. So that's the thin miss
Yep.
that I feel like I can release, but it doesn't curve as much. I'm not sure what the numbers were ball speed wise, but.
Yep, pretty comparable, mate.
Okay. You and I are married men, we know all about this, but help the people at home understand what's the importance of forgiveness, especially in an iron?
Yeah. So forgiveness is one of those terms that gets used a lot, but forgiveness can mean a variety of different things. What's forgiving for one person can make a club unplayable for another person. Forgiveness is you can break it down to two pretty simple things, and that is when someone misses the middle of the club, how consistent are their ball speeds? So if I maybe hit the toe a little bit, does it still come out at a similar speed? I can still get it on the green and have a putt. The strikes were, not perfect, but okay, and we've got better ball speed control. Aha. Straight away, we've improved your dispersion. Dispersion is one of those really boring things to talk about, but it's left, right, and up, down. Easiest thing to deal with is up, down. Just get the ball speed control there. So your more player style heads will allow a bit of twisting and flexion because that player wants to shape it. They want that little bit of versatility in that head. Whereas the more forgiving heads are just for that person who's, I'm not trying to shape it. In fact, I'm trying to take shape off the ball. We still see the push off to the right. Yep. We don't see as much to the left, which is good. Now, how exactly we want to see this go through the air is entirely up to you. But our first thing we're going, nice, really, really good. Now we want to look at trying to see if we can maybe neutralize that a little bit and get this spin rate down a little bit more.
All right, Andrew, let's talk about the relationship, or the marriage, we can say, between loft and lie. Very important through the set of clubs, but even more so in your irons.
Yeah, that's right. The loft and lie of the club, the geometry of the club is very often overlooked, but so critical to getting the right interaction through the turf, the right launch characteristics, but also getting your flight. As a general rule of thumb, it's not a perfect science, but for a traditional loft iron, if a 7-9, you want about 7,000 spin.
Right, okay.
All right, but so you're up near 7.5, high 7s on the bad one where the face stays open. So we want to bring that down. If you don't have enough loft for you as an individual, your ball flight's you're gonna lose distance, it's not gonna get high enough, you're not gonna be able to hold greens. And opposite is true if you have too much, it's gonna stall up in the air, you'll lose distance, but also you'll start shaping it more than you want, your spins will go up.
Okay.
That feels spinnier.
Yep, it definitely was. And then the lie angle is going to control your left and right a lot. So if your lie angle is, upright or flat, that'll dictate the bias of your ball flight. So the flatter you make your lie angle, the more left to right you'll see, and the more upright you make it, the more right to left you'll see. But it's obviously very layered in there because as soon as you start changing lie angle, how does that club work through the turf? There's a lot of factors in there, and that's why hitting off the grass is so important to see. Yeah, straight away, it's obvious that standard lie angle is going to influence that too much, which is where you're coming from.
Right.
Okay, so flat is better.
Yep.
Good, tick.
How important is the shaft in terms of fitting an iron correctly?
Key factors of the shaft is just to link you with the head. It's going to be the #1 factor that controls your posture. So shaft length is the most important thing. Sometimes if the shaft is too long, someone can't deliver the club inside because they run out of room. And so you'll see in a lot of those cases, the player starts swinging out to in. Getting the right shaft length will give you the optimum swing speed and the optimal ball speed by getting your strike right. And often that means going shorter. If a club is too long, generally what you'll see is strike high in the face and or out of the heel.
Shanksville.
Yes. Yep. The shorter you make the club, the more you'll generally move that strike down and towards the toe. And then the shaft weight is going to control your tempo, so how fast are you, how smooth are you. That's how we apply weight. And then how we want the shaft to launch is probably the least important factor in there, but it's still relevant, but shaft length is the most important. Yeah, you've started to thin a little bit, and as we said, the shorter we go, the more thin we're going to see in theory, right? But the ball speed's pretty much the same. It's about as controllable. So the idea here is, okay, we've gone shorter in the shaft, and you actually hit it pretty much the same distance.
Okay. And it's a very common misconception, I imagine, that I'm a really tall guy, therefore I need longer shafts.
Yeah, that's right. It's something we get every day. People who come in are rather tall, but generally speaking, the taller you are, the longer your arms are as well, so they kind of work together, and it's more about how tall you are through impact. Someone who's 6'4" can still use a club that's a standard length or even under length if that's how they are comfortable and can repeat a consistent impact position. You don't see many iron shafts longer than ½ inch over on the PGA Tour, and there's some big guys playing on the PGA Tour. So it's one of those things that's very subjective. There are some good basic outlines. If you are taller, you're probably going to need a little bit longer, but it's not a hard and fast rule, and it's really something that will come out during a good fitting. So you've got the extra shaft, the lever, which is only adding variance left and right, and it's not actually giving you any more speed.
Right.
So we've brought it down and taken away the variance in your posture, but we've given you the exact same speed, but brought your spin down. Plus, plus, plus. Least change for the most gain.
Andrew, thank you so much again, once again, for taking the time here at the Titleist National Fitting Center. Well, we hope you learned as much from that video as we did making it. If you want more information about how you can get fitted at the Titleist National Fitting Center, click on the link in our description box below. Don't forget to give us a thumbs up. And if you want to subscribe for more great content, click on the Asian Tour logo. And to check out the next video in our series on getting into golf, click over here.